Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Around the Table GTA. To continue Simple September, it's kind of changing because of the scenarios that are happening in my life. So, this episode's going to be about stress, how to deal with stress, how to notice stress, just overall stress related. Okay. There's been a lot of stress around my life, not necessarily me being stressed out, but people around me being stressed out. So that's the origin of this episode. So the definition for me for stress is pressure from a scenario that results in affecting how you perceive things, right? A person who can easily maneuver through life will think that life is easy. Things aren't hard. Everything is good, right? But a person who's negatively affected by stress will think life is hard. Life is not great. What's the point of life, right? Stress is two-folded, right? Stress is a double-edged sword in the sense where there's good stress and there's bad stress, right? Good stress can motivate you. Good stress can change your life. Good stress can help you stay focused. So an example of good stress is someone who's so tired of living the type of life that they're living that they start to build and plan a better life. They start to imagine where they can be and what they could do. And after feeling down for so long, they start putting all these pieces together to achieve that goal. And then eventually, when they reach that set, they look back and see that life wasn't as hard as they thought it was, and they just had to change their mindset. Obviously, it's not that simple. Life is complicated. There's a lot of things that bug us, and there's a lot of things that we have to do. And I think it's kind of strange where we kind of live in a society, at least where I am, where you always say that you're okay or that you're fine. I'm kind of the person who just moves away from that. I'm either more than okay or less than okay. So I usually tell people either or, right? Because I want to live in a way where people could tell if I'm upset or people could tell that I'm happy, because I think we wear too many faces, and because we wear these faces, these masks, it kind of stops us from living how we truly are, as well as not letting people realize that things are just as hard for me as it is for you, right? Whether the experiences haven't been so hard, but it's just how everyone deals with every scenario, right? Because someone could take a loss very seriously, and then someone could take a loss and be lost, you know? Yeah, it's pretty crazy how stress can build up. Stress is kind of like when you don't brush your teeth. I think that's like the weirdest example I'm going to use in a while, but it's like when you don't brush your teeth and it builds on more and more plaque, and whatever you're eating just stays on your teeth. And the more you avoid it, the more you don't deal with it, the stress will pile on. And the weird thing about stress is, I would say it's kind of like having a plate that wasn't washed, but there was a bunch of clear stuff on it, and you can't really see it. Sometimes there's stress that you don't realize that you're as stressed as you are, because maybe you're so used to living life kind of chaotic, right? For example, I didn't know that I was that stressed out this weekend, but I went on a vacation with my friends, and I slept through half of the vacation because I've been so tired from work and doing podcast episodes and a bunch of other things where I guess the stress was building up in that way where when I finally was away from everything, I just chose to sleep, right? My body was just like, okay, it's time to knock yourself out. I still had a fun weekend. The stars were nice. Being up north was nice. Fresh air and all that. The weather kind of ruined things, but I didn't let it stress me out because I was in this snooze zone. I'm going to do another episode. It's going to be all about sleeping, but yeah, stress could eat at you in that way where when you're finally vulnerable, that's where it'll peer its head in. And for me, I was lucky enough for it to be like, hey, you know what? You need rest. And that's what I did. I rested. Stress affects your body in so many different ways. And that's the thing. Your body will always know when something's off or something's wrong. When you're eating too much, that could be stress. When you're sleeping too much, that could be stress. If you're not sleeping enough, that could be stress. And the best thing about stress is that we can kind of see it at times, right? And we could work with it. Some people like the feeling of stress where when they're under high pressure, that's when they choose to excel or they have that motivation to push themselves to go because there's only so much time left. I'm kind of those people at times where sometimes it's just better for me to do it last minute because one of my friends says like I'm an adrenaline junkie, but I guess if I'm an adrenaline junkie and that pressure is enough adrenaline, I can use it to my advantage, right? And that's what we need to do in every aspect. Learning about yourself, knowing yourself can help you deal with so many different things. Like for me, how stress has affected me recently, there's someone at my workplace who just got up and quit, right? And that doesn't happen too often, but that's clearly a result of stress. They said it was too much and they just left. We couldn't convince the person to stay. And sometimes life is like that. Sometimes stress will make you think so much where it makes you reevaluate your life, right? And hopefully, if you are reevaluating your life, you're talking with someone, get your stress out, right? When you reevaluate your life, you should always think about how much more life there is, right? Pushing yourself to get to a better spot or, taking that time off. Like for me, I always talk about 2020 and not being able to have that time off. And a lot of people are like, you're selfish for thinking, oh, it would be great to not be working. How many people suffered while they were working? I understand that. But at the same time, there's been no other time in history, at least in recent history, where, at least in my country, where you could stay at home, do nothing, or do whatever you want, get paid for it, and not have to worry for a while, right? That time to reflect, that time to build, that time to kind of detox and everything. I think a lot of people maybe several years from now will be like, wow, I wish I could have did more, or, I'm so happy that I had that time off. For me, I never got to experience that, and I guess that's fine in other ways because I did make a lot of money in the last year, but, as you grow older, as you experience more things, you come to realize that money is means to end. So just continuously pursuing money, it won't necessarily make you happy, right? And the thing is that you never know when you're gonna go, right? So you could grind all day for 5 years and then after drop a day later before you get to experience the what you've worked so hard for, right? So it's a thing where you got to balance things out, and that's what happens when you're stressed, right? You don't know how to balance things out, and things don't look the same, and something that's not that important might seem super important because you don't have your priorities set, because you're thinking about so many different things, right? Stress is manageable. Sometimes you just need sleep. Sleep is one of the best cures, but also having a great circle around you can help. I also de-stress by just getting offline. It's not only just the content that's online, it's just the constant stimulation as well for me. And I think just having your brain rest from like tons of notifications and all the flashing lights, right? The internet's like the new TV, where your parents probably said, oh, don't watch TV too much, it'll rot your brain. But the internet is basically the same thing. The worst thing about it is that if you're even a little bit tech savvy, you could make sure that you don't have any ads. You could watch things continuously, like start to finish. You could marathon something for like a week if you really wanted to on certain services where you have no break, right? And I think a big thing on dealing with stress is, taking a break, whether it's taking a break from work, taking a break from your studies, taking a break from whatever's consuming your time or consuming your mind, and just getting like some fresh air. I think with what happened in 2020 where people couldn't work, so many people were rediscovering nature. And if you saw skate parks were filled for the first time in like, at least in my area, like 7 years. You'd have like one or two skaters, but now the whole park is filled and people have their scooters and everything. Separating yourself from the things that you're kind of intertwined to can be stress relieving as well, right? I know for the first time, like when I was moved out, I was on my own. It was so stress free because no one bothered me too much, like not on the daily, right? My parents would probably call me at least once a week, right? And it was just good to kind of be alone. Yeah, sometimes just being alone for a bit can help as well too, right? Just tying so many things into your life can be stressful. Other people's stress could stress you out, whether it's a family member going through some type of trauma, or just people being on the phone all the time, and you're like, I don't want to hear your voice if I'm not talking to you. as negative as that sounds, I'm so sorry. Is sometimes people can be annoying, right? Or your boss is stressing you out because they need to hit this deadline or timeline or whatever, and you're like, you know what? I don't really care right now. I'm dealing with my own shit, right? So separation kind of helps with stress as well. I think I've mentioned it before. I'm going to mention it again. One of my favorite things to happen to me is when like my phone breaks, because I feel like I don't have to check up on anything. And I think a lot of people don't realize that about the internet right now, especially like with social media. It's kind of trained people to constantly check on things that may or may not matter, right? Whether it's your likes, whether it's your comments, whether it's someone's posted something. You gotta stop and think, like, how much does this really matter in your life, right? How much does that help you in the long run? Will you cherish those memories when you're older, or will you feel like that time could have been used on something completely different, right? I don't know. Maybe that's my stress talking, but I've had more sleep in the last weekend than I've had, like, well, continuous sleep than I've had in, I would say, like, the whole year, which is kind of nuts, right? Either way, stress is a big deal. So find a way to manage it, right? People care about you, whether you think so or not, right? Just being a human being, not even like, even if you have a single friend, or even if you don't have friends and you work somewhere, as long as you're around someone, there's someone that your life is impacting, and you don't know how much of an impact you are until you're gone, right? And the thing is, when you're gone, you can't. Well, I don't know. I've never been gone before, but you can't go back and see how people viewed you, right? It's always in your mind how you think people view you, right? And some people will be honest, some people won't be honest, some people will say the nicest thing possible, some people will just be mean on purpose, right? But either way, balance your stress out. Think about what you can do to minimize stress, optimize your stress if you can, and remember, there's someone out there rooting for you, there's someone out there who cares about you, and there's something that's bigger out there for you. So seize that opportunity, get some rest, de-stress, and aim for your goals. Take care, guys.